Suchit, hi. Thanks so much for coming on
Of course.
this episode.
Thanks
so
for
I
having
think,
me.
thanks, man. I think it would be kind of good this nice Friday evening. We're easing into the weekend. Maybe we can kind of talk a little bit about, very briefly, how I met you, how you met me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first time I remember it was actually in this room. I remember you just happened to message me on Flatmates. Happened to be like, I'm in the area. Can I show up and like have a look? And I was actually, I remember I was on my way to Woolies, and I remember seeing your text, and I was like, oh, okay, like it's a bit too late in the night, but I still decided to. I tend to think about these things quite a lot when I look back at stuff. But yeah, I remember you came here. You said like you were looking for a place around this area. Started talking about like your hiking group, and I think that was one of the things that I really liked about you. And I know you were like you were really wanting to quickly like secure a place, but I think I was still sort of hesitant, like not about you, but more about like I wanted to see like everyone who's inquired and just at least talk to everyone once. But yeah, after that, like I remember, like we started talking. Eventually, I think we decided to go ahead. Because you liked the place and I liked you as a person. I saw something there, I have to say. So
That's
like,
right.
yeah. So I was like, why not? Let's do this. And honestly, looking back at it, one of the best decisions I've probably made this year, because like we are not just housemates in that sense. I think we've become
We
really
became
good friends.
good friends, yeah.
Yeah. And so in that sense, I feel like I made the right decision. So yeah, that's how we met.
That's wonderful. So basically, we're housemates, and we also became good friends. So it's nice coming to a place where there's some nice energy, and I got to meet your friends. You got to meet my friends. So it's been nice. So I think I really wanted to have you over here as the second guest. My first guest was my childhood friend Joey. I wanted to have you here because I feel,
Honored.
of course, brother, and I feel like you have some interesting things to share, particularly about Mississippi. Can you tell me about your connection to Mississippi? Maybe tell the audience.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh man, it's been like, if I think about it, I last left Mississippi in 2015. So Mississippi, yeah, how did that happen? So yeah, in 2011, I decided to go to the U.S. to pursue my higher education. Honestly, at the beginning, I was not really keen for it. My mom was the one who actually quite pushed me, and I applied to universities across the states, some in New York. And so, a lot of people often ask me, oh, how did you actually end up going to Mississippi? Because, that's not a very common destination when people decide to go to the States. And my quite honest answer is yes, I did decide to take a gamble at life in a way, but also it was, to be honest, my scholarship. So I was getting like a really good scholarship from Mississippi State. And so that was one of the factors that just like got me to actually choose that school. And so yeah, in 2011, decided to go to Mississippi. Specifically, I lived in Starkville, and this is like, in comparison to where we are today in Melbourne, it's a very different vibe. A very small, family-oriented university town. Not a lot of people, from memory, honestly. Even today, I think maximum like about 25,000 people just in the town. And so, it's not a big town. We had like, I remember we had one movie theater. We had like maybe 3 or 4 strip malls, maybe 2 Walmarts at the most. And so it was a very small, very basic, simple town.
Closely knit, quite closely knit.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, to give you context of really how small this place is, my first experience ever, like, touching down, of course, I have a lot of anxiety about like, being by myself, first time in my life ever at the age of 18. A lot of things going through my head, but the last thing I expect is for the airport to be this small. So as soon as I land, people who were supposed to actually come pick me up really forgot about picking me up. And I was like, okay, you know what, big deal, big whoop, right? Like I'm gonna catch a cab or something like that. But in like about 5 minutes after I collect my baggage, the guy working at the airport comes to me and he's like, hey, are you actually waiting for someone? And I was like, yeah, like, a couple of people were gonna come pick me up. But he then goes on to tell me that in about 10 minutes they're gonna close the airport.
Oh, shit.
Like completely shut down the airport. And that's not a phrase I've ever heard. I used to think airports are 24/7, but that just wasn't the case. So because Mississippi only, like specifically Starkville, only has one flight in the morning and one flight in the evening, those are the only hours when they actually keep the airport open, which makes sense. But I just didn't know that. And so that was the start to my experience. But
That's a good welcome.
Yeah, absolutely, right? Like for an 18-year-old guy, left everything, first time traveling by myself. It was actually my first international trip. And we had never been on any international trips before that. So yeah, it was very interesting. But although it started on that note, I have to say, like my 4 or 5 years that I spent in Starkville in Mississippi were one of the best times that I've had. Like I've had so many memories, so many good friends, so many good conversations, so many experiences that I had in those 5 years. And I think it's no surprise to you. You keep telling me that I keep talking about like so fondly about my times there, about the parties, about the American culture, that I maybe even miss the US in general sometimes, and I think that is true. But yeah. So that was roughly my experience in Starkville, Mississippi.
It's awesome. And then you also came here and you studied here, right? Now, if you were to compare like the education system and also the student life, university or college here versus there, what are the main differences that stood out to you?
Oh man, that's such a great question. Look, one of the biggest, of course, other than the size and how small the town was, I think culturally, of course, everyone knows it. Like Mississippi is like really, really proper a southern state, and so sometimes even when I tell people that I had really good experiences even with people with southern hospitality, they don't tend to actually believe me, because they're like, no ways, because like everything that you hear about Mississippi is like it's poor, it's a poor state, racist people. But honestly, quite frankly, that was definitely not what my experience was at all. In fact, I feel like being in Melbourne, although Melbourne people are also amazing, but sometimes you find equally people who have had the same mindset. And one of the things about Mississippi was most people that I spoke to there always they, for their whole lives, they've only lived in Mississippi. They've never actually gone outside the state. So essentially, like quite literally, they live in a bubble. In contrast, I think in Melbourne, people are more liberal, more modern, and more forward-thinking. There are laws about so many things that I'm pretty sure in America they don't even care about that much. I think in terms of regulations and things like that, I quite like the way Australia is, and specifically Melbourne, I think is one of the most liberal states and most multicultural places, I think, across Australia. So yeah, like while I've had beautiful friends and beautiful interactions with people here as well, although people might not think so, I had some amazing experiences with people in Mississippi as well.
It's fantastic. I think I kind of understand how like the education system in the US is different to here, like when you go to university. Because over there, when we drop my sister off, I know there's all the campus culture and it's crazy. Like you have the teams, the football teams, but over here, I think it's more around that proper tertiary education, and there's some societies and clubs, but none of that real,
Absolutely, I think you're spot on. My university experience in the US was night and day different to what it was here in Melbourne. And yes, for context, my university campus was about like 4,000 acres in terms of space, and like about 18,000 people. So of course the ratio to like students to the space and just the amount of like big facilities we had in that university was significantly different to my experience here in Deakin. And yes, I don't think I had that much of a campus life, even if you want to call it that, like here in Deakin, in Burwood. Like it's so different like there's like so many student bodies there. While we do that, have that here in Australia as well, it's just the size and the scale in which everything happens in any university in the US is so significantly different. And I definitely miss that part of my uni life. Like when I came here and was doing my masters here, honestly, campus life was minimum to like non-existent sometimes, and people were not really keen if like coming on campus, going to classes, whereas in the US people wanted to be on campus 24/7.
Campus
like
spirit.
yes
Campus
yes
spirit.
like every time there was an event, everyone wanted to show up, dress up in maroon colors, bulldog, like we called the MSU Bulldogs. Like that was our that was what we were known for. Even in football, like the size of the stadium itself, 60,000 like seats, like that big of a stadium within just our university.
Crazy.
And so yeah, college football and the amount of money they spend on things like that in the US, it's just very, very beyond scale to anything that happens here.
It's a business, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, if I'm not even exaggerating, but I think like probably 60% of all tuition fee that you actually pay in US universities goes towards like infrastructure. And when I say infrastructure, it's mostly towards football.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So you've been living here in Melbourne for some years now, haven't you?
Yeah.
And one thing I was hoping we can touch on is coffee culture. It's big here, and coffee culture, I've also noticed, is big in your life.
Yeah.
Maybe you could talk a little bit about that, how it's been.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be honest, when I was coming to Melbourne, I had no idea if what even coffee culture was, and that Melbourne had a coffee culture. I had no idea. I was not exposed to coffee in that sense. And like I think you can pretty much guess my exposure to coffee when I was in the US was Starbucks and maybe a couple of other cafes, sure, here and there. But mostly when people said, "Oh, do you want to go get coffee?" they meant going to Starbucks. And so coming here to Australia, thinking that this is also a first world country, I was like, okay, max to max, that would be their coffee culture. But man, oh man, was I wrong. Like, I remember just in my first semester, I may have tried like close to 15 to 20 cafes in the CBD, and that opened my mind to this crazy, and it's we call it a culture, but it really is a lifestyle for some people. And I keep telling you about many a times about how I want to get into coffee so much. One of my inspirations have been James Hoffman, if anyone follows him on YouTube. The rabbit hole of like coffee culture can go really, really deep. I want to have a good setup, like in terms of my coffee like station, but I think it's such a big investment. Like if you get a grinder, you have to get like a proper extraction, you get all the tools, and it's just endless. You can easily, in a blink of an eye, end up spending like thousands of dollars having a proper coffee setup, and that's why I'm even scared to start. But when I have my actual dream house, I think I will definitely have like a very dedicated like coffee station. Yeah.
That's very exciting. Speaking of dream house, don't mind if I ask you real briefly, what would that look like? Put it out to the universe, let it manifest. And the people that will watch, now you have to put pressure on him because now he's manifested this, right?
Right. Yeah. Maybe that's actually true. And I think manifestation, briefly to talk on that, I think is one of the things that you actually introduced to my life. So I'm very new to this, but yeah, I think I'm starting to see the benefits of it. But yeah, going back to coffee, or going back to my ideal home, more than like materialistic things, I'm not a big person in terms of brand, but I do like the small simplistic luxuries. So yes, look, I do want definitely maybe like 3 or 4 bedrooms, and that sounds a lot, but I'm thinking in terms of like if I have a partner, if my parents come over or her parents come over, like we want at least like that many rooms. Plus, also these days we are working from home like half the week, and so I would love for us to have like a good office setup. So maybe like a separate room that is dedicated just for work. Because I've tried quite a bit to always have like a separation of my workspace and my living space. But like being a student and sometimes being in like rental spaces, you don't have that luxury. So I think I would definitely have a dedicated office space. You know me, I'm also a big cinephile, so I would love for me to have like a big projector room set up with like a proper home theater setup and everything, and have like a movie room essentially where I would love to host like movie nights with my friends or with family, etc. Pool, I don't think I'm too keen on that, if I'm being honest. Yeah, like while it would be a plus to have, I don't think it's like a thing that I need to have.
Pool isn't swimming pool.
Yeah.
Okay, not
Swimming
the
pool.
billiards.
No. Just to be clear, swimming pools. And other than that, I think I would love to have like a really good kitchen backyard. I love to cook, right? And I love food, and so I would want to have at least maybe a couple of like small plants that I could grow in my backyard, like tomatoes, or like an herb garden or something along those lines. But yeah, I'm actually keen to know what about you? Because look, this has just come from like me loving certain things and wanting those things to be in my home. But I'm actually curious to hear from you. What would your dream house look like? A dream home would look like?
Well, real briefly, I think it would probably be like a two-car garage. Maybe I'd just have one car, and it would be very important to have like a nice spa place, like maybe a jacuzzi, sauna, that type of stuff, because I'm all about that. And of course, a little gym, maybe a small gym where I can just go work out. Doesn't have to be state of the art, and maybe some mats if you're doing some grappling, and like a kickboxing bag. And yeah, I think that'll be good. Burn some calories. Nothing special in my home, but obviously I'd really like it nicely decked out with a beautiful glass kind of like expansive view. But that would be the main thing.
Yeah.
But going back, if you don't mind me asking, on the topic
course.
of coffee, I slipped my mind, but now I want to ask you. For those that maybe are visiting Melbourne for the first time, or they're looking to find a new coffee place, what do you reckon has the best coffee in Melbourne? What's the go-to?
Oh man, I think you sort of know the answer to this one, but and look, I have tried a few coffee places that are like top 3, but if I had to choose one, I think it has to be the Little Rogue in the CBD. So yeah, man, like that place, and one of the things that I really love about that place is how consistent they are. And that's another thing about coffee, right? Like you can have the best beans in the world, you can have the best machinery, you can have the best extraction, you can have the best roast. So many components to coffee, right, that can always keep fluctuating. But even if you end up spending as a cafe owner, right, like the best of the best, but in the end, honestly, so much of it really comes down to the barista. And that's where I respect like people who make great coffee, is because so many variables and so many factors, and it's so hard after all of that to consistently keep pumping out like that high level coffee. And I just find it so respectable about Little Rogue. Is like you go there in the morning when they are like I think you've seen like people queue up there, and so when they are that busy, or you go in the afternoon, no matter what time you actually go to this place, the coffee like just hits the spot, man. Like I have to say, like I don't know how they do it, or they just have like really good employees, but their coffees, I think, consistently. And I should say, like, it's not just coffee. I'm sure you can correct me if I'm wrong, but they actually make one of the best matchas that we've had.
Yes, that is true. I'd like to thank you for actually introducing me to Little Rogue. I am not much of a coffee person at all, but I'm a big matcha person. I've tried all the matcha places in Melbourne, but by far the best one that I've had has been Little Rogue, and I've only been there once, but definitely I want to pay another visit.
Yeah.
Especially since you're saying that they're so consistent.
Yeah.
So I know that if demand is high, low, if there's a crowd or not, I'm quite sure the matcha will be just as consistent.
100%. And I think, look, I think, like, yes, you're right. I'm absolutely 100% a coffee person. And only recently, actually, and because of you, in a way, started trying matcha a little bit more than usual. And I have to say, having not liked matcha probably for like a good part of my life, just in the past 2 months, and because of trying some places like Little Rogue, I think my whole perspective about matcha has changed quite a bit. Yeah, I think so. To answer your question, yes, like Little Rogue would be one of the top places. Another place I would say is also Good Measure. That's on my list, and I think I need to take you there.
Oh, I'm already excited. As long as they do a good matcha, I'm in.
For sure, man.
Yeah. And there's one more thing I wanted to ask you about, and that was about the culinary aspect of life. When I moved in with you, and I noticed that you are very big on not only making food, but also the presentation and also going out and trying new places. Can you talk to me a little bit about what got you so interested in food?
Yeah. To be honest, I don't know where I got it from. Like, again, going back to my US years, initially, I didn't know at all how to cook. Like, I never practiced, I never even paid attention to my mom cooking at home. Like, as brown people, I think we tend to take our parents, but more importantly our mothers, like so granted sometimes, because meals were ready, hot and delicious. As long as we are doing our things and like meals were ready on times, that's all we cared about. And so I honestly never had, I hear a lot of stories about Italian people especially, who have a very strong culture of having their grandmas like pass on the tradition, pass on the skills to their kids, but their grandkids as well. And none of that was ever present in my household. And so when I went to the US, I was like, okay, I'm gonna start cooking for just sustenance. Like, I'm just gonna cook, like just to
survive.
get by.
To survive,
Exactly. But it so happened that in our apartment, like we were in a shared house of like 4 people, what we decided to do is actually like cook together and not cook individually, which was great at that time. And that also, like, as a result of that, what happened is essentially we picked days, like who cooks what and on what day, etc. That was how it started. Initially, was I a great cook? Probably not. We'll have to ask my housemates from back then. But slowly and slowly, I started hearing people like really start saying, "Oh, like how did you actually make that?" Or where did you find this recipe from? And what I found is, and I still believe it to this date, look, you can follow a recipe, right? Like, there are people who are great at following recipe. But I think for me, it was like an intuition that I felt towards food. Like, I just started noticing that I had just a better feel for like certain things when it came to cooking. And
what do you mean by feel?
yeah, so you know how, like, I'm sure, like, if you ever call your parents or your mom, for example, in this case, and you ask her, "Mom, how did you actually, can you give me a recipe for making biryani?" And instead of actually saying 3 grams of cayenne pepper or like 3 grams of turmeric, she would actually say, "Oh, pinch, a handful," things like that, right? So we're all used to that, and like it used to annoy me initially when I used to like ever call my mom and ask for recipes. But over time, that's when I really started to understand that I had a feel for it. Even without following a recipe, sometimes I would like start understanding the feel of the color, like when do onions actually brown, or when do they caramelize, or like when is like a tomato puree actually cooked out fully through, things like that. And it takes a while, but I think because of like certain like recipes just coming out well, or certain things me cooking just coming out well, I started to get more and more into it. I started to watch a lot of YouTube videos about a lot of people at that time who were really like I think at that time, like considering, like comparing it to what YouTube is today, it was still comparatively early years of YouTube, but there were some really amazing chefs from whom I was able to like learn the basics of cooking, and then I just went on and on and on and on. And I think, like all things in life, cooking also is in a way about practice as well. More like intuition, like similar to intuition. I think the more you practice this as well, you just get better at it. And again, just to be clear, I don't consider myself a chef or even a pro, to be honest with you, but I just love doing it. Like when I do it, I feel alive, I feel like happy, and I actually also like making it for people. I like making dishes for my friends, I like to impress someone, etc. So that's what got me down there.
I'll have just for context, Suchit, you were talking about how you started off kind of like for survival, just for sustenance. But I think it is like an art, because obviously the more you hone it, the better you've gotten. I've seen that in your final pieces. Whenever you're about to have food, you always kindly offer me a bite, and everything you've offered, regardless of the cuisine, has been phenomenal. And that also goes with your desserts. You made some wonderful stuff, and I noticed sometimes you don't measure stuff. You just like that intuition which you said is built.
Yeah.
And I think you also inspired me to start putting more effort into my food.
Oh, that's
you might remember
amazing.
In the beginning, I wasn't really putting much effort, but now I actually kind of put effort into making my dal when it doesn't have worms and stuff in it.
Yeah.
But actually making food that tastes good as well.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with you. But I think this is a good segue. Look, I mean, these were some amazing topics and things that have built us, like our life experiences and like also our bonding as well. I think in this one, even though like you said, now you have a better understanding and you really want to like start cooking more. But what was something when you moved here, like between us, like did you ever actually end up thinking, like did you see when the first time you saw me, did you end up actually thinking that we would ever be friends?
I thought that we would be housemates that kind of respect each other's space and all, and we're like polite to each other. Because my first impression of you is that this person is very polite, respectful. So I was quite sure that you'd be like that, and I'm not wrong. But I did not know. I think that we would be good friends, and I think we're quite good friends right now. And also we now share some common friends, and we all get along with each other, which is wonderful.
Yeah, no, I definitely see that. And I think I've told you this before. I think, like, similar to how you said things about my cooking, I think one of the skills I really appreciate about you is like, I think your social skills, right? Like, I think you're really able to like, get people together. You're really able to like connect with people quickly. Like sometimes, honestly, I don't know if I have social anxiety. I think I have social anxiety. I don't know, but like often sometimes like in the strangest of places or the strangest of times where I would least expect to actually strike a conversation with someone, there you are like in the corner actually chatting this person up. So were you always this person, or like did you actually end up building this over the years?
I think I kind of built it. I was normally a little shy as a kid, but if I can recommend one book, here I am with my book recommendations: How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie.
Yeah.
A lot of what I learned about communicating came from that book. I read and I apply it.
Yeah.
So I found that really helpful.
Look, I think you've recommended me that book for sure. But I've heard that. I think that's one of the more consistent books that I've heard from a lot of people over the years. Unfortunately for me though, I'm not a very big reader, but because of like audiobooks and stuff, I'm slowly getting into it, or at least listening. I think I find that more like my thing than actually reading something. But yeah, I'll definitely check that out. Yeah,
for sure. And I think we've covered the main topics. So the main one was life in Mississippi, US versus Australia, especially for education, for university. So this is good for people that are considering the university options for both coffee culture and obviously the culinary area. I think it might be a good wrap for now. Hey,
okay.
What do you reckon?
Yeah. I think
I would like to maybe end by kind of asking you a question. And maybe you can kind of share that with everyone else. And it would be if you could give a piece of advice to just anyone who's watching this, young, old, wherever they're from in the world. What advice would that be?
That's a really tough one, because I actually don't think I'm a person like who's ever been great at giving advice. But I think from personal experiences that I've had over the years, the one thing that I have told myself the most is to never give up.
No.
I think it's hard, especially, like so many things happen in a day, but so many things happen over the years. Could be relationships, could be like, about your career, could be so many things about like relationship with your parents. So many things that actually tend to bring you down, and like not some days, you're not actually seeing the bright side of life. But one thing I've consistently told myself is to just one step at a time, that kind of ideology. But also, just simply not give up, just keep trying as much as you can.
That's beautiful. And that's a good way to end off on a very inspiring note. Suchit, thank you so much.
Of course.
And I hopefully will see you around.
Yeah. I think we will see each other around for a long time. Thank you so much for having me. And it was nice having this very impromptu catch up.
Thanks, brother. Enjoy your Friday evening.
Thank you.
Bye, brother. And I'm like, bye. We both go this way. Yeah, I'll see you around, bro. Where do you live?
When you said right, I'll see you around, I was like so confused.
I'll see you around. We're fucking in the same home.